Hi, I'm Elizabeth at A Literary Princess, and today I have a massive book haul for you. So this is going to be in like 3 different sections. The first is school books for my class on women, gender, and health. Second is my books for my qualifying exams. And then third is just some illustrated fairy tales that I bought because I could, and I was ordering books anyway. And I figured I'd treat myself because I deserve it. So let's jump right in. First up, we've got The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks by Rebecca Skloot. That might be right, I don't know. So I've actually already started this one. I'm about a third of the way through. So Henrietta Lacks is a woman who in the 1950s went into Johns Hopkins Hospital to be looked at for cervical cancer, and they removed some of her cancer cells and were able to keep the cells not only alive, but they continued multiplying. And these were then used in all kinds of medical tests for various medicines. They sent some of them up to space, and they're still being used today. But Henrietta Lacks and her family never knew that this happened until very recently. So all of this was done without their permission, and they've received no money for it or anything like that, even though I think they're selling the cells for something like $25 each or something insane like that. So this is super fascinating. It's gearing up to be a 5-star read as of right now, and I think it was a really good way to start off the semester. It's not too jargony, and it reads like a story. So it's great so far. I'm really excited to finish it and talk about it in my class. Next up is The Fibromyalgia Story, Medical Authority and Women's Worlds of Pain by Kristen K. Barker. So we each had to pick 2 books off of a list to present on to the class, and this is one of the ones that I picked. I don't really know much about it. I don't know much about fibromyalgia, but I guess I'm gonna learn. So this I'm not reading till right toward the end of the semester, so it'll be a while. And then I have my last 2 books for this class on my Kindle. First is Everything Below the Waist, Why Healthcare Needs a Feminist Revolution by Jennifer Block. This is the second book I'm presenting on, not this coming week, but the week after. So this right now is about women's reproductive health and why we need to be changing things about how we handle it. It's very interesting so far. Kind of disturbing, extremely disturbing. I think that's going to be a theme throughout this class, is just me being disturbed. But so, and then the last one is Doing Harm, The Truth About How Bad Medicine and Lazy Science Leave Women Dismissed, Misdiagnosed, and Sick by Maya Dusenberry? Sorry, I don't know. So this is a book that the whole class is reading, but I'm actually leading the discussion on with one of the other women in my class. So that's going to be about mid-semester. So I planned my things out so that I wouldn't be doing them all in a row. All right, so that is all for my Women, Gender, and Health class. Let's move into the books for qualifying exams. First up is The Clever Woman of the Family by Charlotte Mary Young. She is a Victorian author who was popular in the time period, but is pretty much neglected now. This was supposed to be I was supposed to read this for my independent study, but we ended up running out of time. So it's still on my list for qualifying exams. So I'm really excited to meet a new Victorian women writer and see what this is about. Next up is The Romance of a Shop by Amy Levy, who is, once again, another fairly neglected Victorian women writer. She's actually Jewish as well. So I read this in my master's program, and I loved it. I actually wrote my final paper on it. It's an early new women novel about 4 sisters opening a photography business. So I knew this needed to be on my exam lists because it's great, and B, it's a Victorian women writer who was popular, but that we don't really read now. So I'm excited to reread this. It was a very good time. Next up is one that I actually read already, but I needed a physical copy of because the Kindle version didn't have page numbers. Like, I need page numbers for my exams. This is East Lynne by Ellen Wood. This book is insane. What is this book? So this is a sensation novel, but it's about a woman who abandons her husband and children to go off with some seducer. Very popular Victorian novel, like a bestseller of the time, but that like most people haven't heard of now. It's really weird. There is a lot going on in this. I don't know if I actually liked it. It's like just suffering, constant suffering of the main character. And what I concluded, my professor and I concluded this together after my independent study, was that the Victorians were both sadists and masochists. They liked reading about people suffering so that they could watch them suffer, but also suffer along with them. Very strange, but I will be rereading this at some point, and I'm excited to have page numbers. Okay, next up is George Eliot's Daniel Deronda. This is just for my general Victorian period list. I have a difficult relationship with George Eliot. I've talked about that before. This is, I think, her last novel. Yep, her last novel, published in 1876. I've heard that the parts with Gwendolyn are really good, but that the parts with Daniel are meh. So we'll see. It's nice and thick. Hopefully it's a little bit easier than Middlemarch. Next up is another that I've also read. This is Miss Marchbanks by Margaret Oliphant, which you might recognize from my best books of 2021. So this was also for my independent study, and it's now on my qualifying exam lists. Just a note, I hate stickers on books. This is evil. People shouldn't do this. I'm gonna try to attack that with a hairdryer and see if it'll lift up without ripping apart the cover, because this is fairly well loved. But yeah, I love this book. This is a great book. I am excited to reread it and have page numbers, because the whole time I was writing my essay on it, I just had to keep citing the chapters, and it was a big pain in the ass. All right, next up is for my just general Victorian Lit list. I actually have a copy of this already, but it's in a really ugly bind up with 2 other novels, and I wanted just a separate nice copy. And this is Dracula by Bram Stoker. And I don't know what they're doing over at Penguin with the new covers, but the texture's lovely. Like, when I took this out of the wrapping, I just wanted to pet it the whole time. So I read this 2 years ago for a class, my Victorian Gothic class. I'll be rereading it. It's very good. I'm excited to have a copy that is not a mass market paperback bound up with Frankenstein and Dr. Jekyll and Hyde with font that I can barely read. All right, and last in the qualifying exam category is The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and Other Tales of Terror by Robert Louis Stevenson. Like I said, I had this bind up of the 3 novels, and I just needed separate copies. So I bought separate copies, and now I have a few other stories by him. I've never read anything else by Robert Louis Stevenson. I have Treasure Island, but I've never read it. So I'll be rereading that. It's nice and short. And eventually I'll probably buy a copy of Frankenstein, but that's not my time period, so I didn't need it right now. All right, and now we are to the fairy tales. So first up is Snow White, illustrated by Trina Heman. I don't actually know how to pronounce her last name, but this is my favorite illustrated copy of Snow White ever. I came across it in college in a children's lit class, and I decided, you know what, I want a copy. Unfortunately, so I had the option of buying this paperback for like $4, and then there was a hardcover for $10, and I decided to be thrifty and go for the $4. And then as soon as I opened it the first time, 2 pages fell out. It was supposed to be in acceptable condition. That's not acceptable condition. But so I'm kind of bummed out that I didn't spring for the hardcover, but the illustrations are still beautiful. So a little bit disappointing, but yeah. And then last up we have The Goose Girl, illustrated by Sabine Brittingen. I don't know. I'm sorry. I can't pronounce anyone's names. If it's not like the most basic English name, I can't do it. I'm sorry. So you very rarely come across illustrated versions of The Goose Girl. This is the first time I've really seen one. And the style is really interesting. I like it in some of them, and then I don't in others. It's very odd, but I'm really happy to have this. I obviously use my illustrated fairy tales to take pictures for my Fairy Tale Friday features over on my blog. And so it's always nice to have a pretty background to put the retelling next to. So that is my book haul for now. This actually isn't everything I ordered. I have a few more coming. Cue screams of horror from my fiance. One of them was supposed to be here already, and now it's being delayed, and then the other two or three, I ordered a little bit later. So I will do another video when they show up. So let me know down in the comments if you've read any of these and what you thought. Please don't forget to follow me on my blog and my Tumblr. The links are down in the description box below. It's been great chatting with you all, and I will see you soon. Bye.